What's happening, party people? It is good to see everybody out there again. Thank you for tuning on in as your regular season for the NBA has come to a close. The Miami Heat, they lost to the Orlando Magic in the finale as they dropped this one. It was a tough one. You know, a lot on the line here. Pride, mostly. The Sunshine State, whatever the hell they play for. I will say, I know the Heat get a little bit wacky with their city edition uniforms. You know, they do the mashup this year. I like the mashups. The Vice uniforms, obviously, magnifique. Although what the hell do they even call those? The last version, the Vice Versa, that was bold. That was a bold try. This Orlando Magic with the orange, I don't know what the hell they're doing. They look like the knockoff New York Knicks. I don't know what the hell's going on there with them, but they were able to beat the Heat 125-111. Story of this game though was Victor Oladipo once again, kind of shining randomly on a Sunday night at 7:00. Victor Oladipo was playing with something called Michael Mulder and was out there balling out. I mean, he was awesome in every which way, taking on the team that drafted him. I don't know if there was a revenge game factor for Victor Oladipo. I don't know if he was looking for his own vengeance because he's not pleased that he's not playing, but he looked fantastic. 40 points, 10 rebounds, 7 assists. It's got to be one of the best stat lines all season for the Miami Heat. It was absolutely crazy. Yeah, I know who he's taking on. He's taking on just, the dregs of the Orlando Magic and all that. But still, you're going out there. Everybody knows, hey, we just got to stop Vic because it's Haywood Highsmith and Big Yurt and Mulder and Javonte Smart's playing 34 minutes for you, even though he had 20 points. That a nice little statistical game there for Smart. But, everybody's looking at this and saying, oh, it's going to be Victor Oladipo. And it was a fantastic performance from him. The thing that's interesting out of this is, hearing Spo and hearing Vic after the game talk about where things are right now. Spo was interesting because he's talking about the idea of, this was a great performance. You're happy from that performance, and we move forward.
I just really respect and admire, how he's handled, this entire process. He's really been working diligently behind the scenes. His off days, just spending so much time getting treatment and working. After games, he's always the last one to leave. He's in the weight room and doing all that work. And, there's been a lot of guys that have had, injuries that might not be the exact same injury, but that would just push everything to the next season. And, he's made himself available, put himself out there to be vulnerable and just really giving into the team. And, I was really, happy for him that he was able to have a performance like this tonight, and we'll just keep on moving forward.
And then, Vic, these last couple of post-game sessions has kind of just been like, this is who I am, and I don't need this to prove to myself that I'm a good basketball player.
I don't need this to have confidence in myself. I believe in my game. I believe in myself. I just got to continue, like I said, to keep getting better. I told you before, it's a rehab thing. It's a rehab process for me. I know the situation. I came back in the middle of the year. It was different. But, my belief in myself and my game will never waver. So, unfortunately, we couldn't get the win tonight. I played pretty well, but I got to keep getting better.
It's interesting. This is it's such a subplot for Vic mostly than it is, I think, the Miami Heat. Because you think about a guy, right, who picked a team that he wanted to go to and where he wanted to rehab and where he wanted to live and all that type of stuff, but also thinking to himself, I think I'm going to have a pretty big role on this team. And just like Vic, I remember this very distinctly after his first game back with the Rockets, and no Strus, no Gabe Vincent. And he said after that game, I appreciate those guys for sacrificing their minutes. Almost in a, I don't want to say a demeaning way, but it was just like a, attaboys. Thank you for holding down the fort for old Vic. And now he's at this point where those guys have supplanted him back into the rotation and have taken their spots. But I think it's interesting just because Victor Oladipo could have never thought about this coming. You know, you just never know with this Miami Heat team who is truly going to step up and who's going to have a big role for him. So if you're Victor Oladipo and you're in the preseason and you're looking at where are the places I should go, all right, I'm going to sign for the minimum. Obviously, you're kicking the can on getting your next contract. What are you looking at? In his mind, you know, he's going to be back essentially halfway through the season for maybe a title contending team in his mind. And you look and you see Gabe Vincent, Max Strus. Who the hell are those guys? There's no way that they're going to play in front of me. Probably doesn't even come across his mind. And then even under the side of Tyler Hero, not even maybe there's a shot that Victor Oladipo doesn't think Tyler Hero is going to do off the bench what he does this year, which is essentially lock up and put in a chokehold 6th man of the year. And so you almost wonder if there's a point where Victor is watching all the things that are happening. And he's always been a very great guy on the bench and leading the pepas and all that type of stuff, and very vocal during the scrimmages and things like that. Just seemed like a good guy energy-wise. But I do think that it shifts to a spot where you're like, yeah, but my time will come. My time will come. And then your time comes, and the team doesn't play great. You have a couple of sparking moments in there. Your debut was fantastic. You have a flashy play every now and then, but the team isn't playing well. And quite frankly, they're kind of imploding. They have their first 4-game losing streak. You're trying to figure out what hasn't been playing as well and what's not going together great. The thing that's really noticeable about him is that he doesn't seem like he's on the same page with everybody because he's just kind of dropped out of the sky into the season. And so, yeah, he's shown some burst. He's shown some moves. He's even shown a good shot every now and then for sure. But is this a guy who's going to fit? Is he going to be one of our most important 4 players? And then what makes those most important 4 players most comfortable? And I just think that for him, maybe some of the whole not being thrilled right now is just looking like, man, this is where I'm at. I'm not outplaying Gabe Mother Bleeping Vincent. All respect to Namdi. You know I love you, dude. I'm not outplaying Max Strus. Like, who are these guys? I was an all-defensive player. I was an all-star. And this is where I'm at. Like, I can understand it being a very deflating thing for Victor Oladipo. That being said, I'm still in this place where you see what he's done over these last 2 performances. And I'm at a very split place because I do like the fact that the Heat do seem more cohesive. They do seem like they're on a chemistry kick, if you will. You need to have, because of your star players, have better fits around them. You can't do essentially what the Lakers are doing and just say, hey, let's play fantasy basketball. We'll figure it out. Even with the great LeBron James, it reaches its limit. So for a guy like Jimmy Butler, Adebayo, Tyler Hero, Kyle Lowry, what are they going to do to make themselves more comfortable? And so you have 2 role guys in Max Strus and Gabe Vincent who aren't scared, who can provide great minutes and have been all year. And, you know, they're not guys who really need a lot of touches. And if they do, if it's coming to them, it's coming in hot and it's going to be risen up for a shot to for a 3-pointer. So I think for me, it's unfortunate that Victor Oladipo is in this spot because I really, really do like the dude. Seems like a good guy. It's just I think that he probably looked at the landscape of this team, and I think a lot of people did. I didn't think it was going to be as deep as it did. I mean, think about it. Think if you were to step back and you were to look at this season, you're like, oh yeah, the Heat's main contributors off the bench, aside from Tyler Hero, who I don't consider a bench player, but outside of their core, which you would essentially say is Bam, Jimmy, Kyle Lowry, Tyler Hero, and PJ Tucker. And then at the time was Duncan Robinson. So that was their kind of role there. You knew Dwayne Dedmon was going to be the big off the bench. And, you know, Max Strus and Gabe Vincent, they're going to be cute. But really what's happened is Max, Gabe, and Caleb Martin have been so good. They've been undeniable. Undeniable to a point where Max Strus has taken away a Duncan Robinson's minutes, a $90 million player, has taken away his role and essentially squeezed him into, like, you know, if he comes off the bench hot, he'll play. And if he doesn't, oh well. And for Gabe, he's done such a great job at being a pain in the ass defensively. I mean, how many scraps does it feel like Gabe Vincent has gotten into this year with guys being annoyed by playing him and can get on a roll, offensively? I don't know if you rely on it, but it can happen. And so if we're all sitting here on the outside thinking that, think about that and then have the basketball credentials of Victor Oladipo and picture what you thought was going to be this year, where you probably thought, I'm going to be in a town that I love. I'm going to be in a place where I've wanted to be for a long time. I've always wanted to get to the Miami Heat. I'm going to come halfway through the season. I'm going to be a main contributor off the bench, maybe the main contributor off the bench. Maybe by the end of this, I'm starting. And I'm going to get me a max deal by the end of this. I think that all goes through his head. And now you're staring at it and you're like, man, am I going to have to do another prove it deal? Maybe I'll get a mid-level. I think it's probably a tough thing to sink in. And also, by the way, in the last 2 times we've seen him on a court, really contributed to the Miami Heat. Now they've been for wins, and he's been the best player on the floor. So it's got to be interesting seeing him in. It's got to be interesting being Victor Oladipo in this spot. That being said, I still don't rule out the fact that we could still see him in some kind of a playoff role. I think this is going to be a grueling playoffs for the Miami Heat. I know I am. Don't tell Leroy, but I know I am usually, put my monocle in, put on my top hat, smoke my pipe, put on my suit, and we're going to be gentlemanly this whole way through. But I genuinely do think these are going to be grueling playoffs. And I think that there's going to come a time where the Heat are going to need Victor Oladipo. Maybe it's one of those spark games. Maybe it's the Mike Miller game where he hits 7 threes out of nowhere, where Mike Miller really wasn't doing bleep the entire year. Shane Battier the same way. You just never know. Like, you think that these guys are in these defined roles, and Norris Cole has a big game against the Chicago Bulls, or, Udonis Haslem just is perfect from the field against the Indiana Pacers. You don't necessarily expect it, and then it just comes out of nowhere. And I really think that Victor Oladipo is still going to be in that role. Yeah, I think that they got their guys. We know what their rotation is now. We know the 8 guys they're basically going to roll with. But that doesn't mean that a guy can't get in foul trouble. That doesn't mean that they can't get into a slump. That doesn't mean that there's a particular guard who's just cooking them and they need a little bit more ferocity on the defensive side, or they just can't get to the rim the same way. I think, you can't rule out that there might be a point where Victor Oladipo may need to be relied upon. These rotations are great in theory, but it is the playoffs. It's going to be the first white hot playoffs that this core has gotten to be in. The crowd is going to be fired up. It's going to be amped up. You're going out to hostile road environments. Well, not with the play-in teams. Brooklyn, Barclays Center's like, FTX North. Charlotte, that's Let's Go Heat Haven, except for Purple Shirt Guy, if he's still there. The Hawks, come on. Might as well be the Heat's minor league camp. And then, Cleveland. I guess you could say Cleveland's a tough environment. As bandwagon as they come, those Cavaliers fans, they swear to God they're the greatest fans on the planet. But, okay, maybe you're scared of some of those atmospheres. I don't know. But for me, it was an interesting thing seeing Victor Oladipo go out there, ball out like that, and him to kind of sit back and be like, man, where am I at with this? Where does this go from here? And I don't know, but I still, I don't want to say I hold out hope, because I hope everybody on the Heat does good, but I still would not be surprised if we're going to be sitting here a month from now and Victor Oladipo had a couple of big playoff games for the Miami Heat and maybe even finds himself in the rotation. Who knows? Who knows how big those games were, how vital they would be. You never quite know what swings the series and how you have to go from there. But hell of an exclamation point for Vic.